The one thing about playing bunker shots is that they look very difficult to play, and that's partly because the technique is quite different to a normal shot. The good news is that once you understand how to play a bunker shot, what that technique is, and you do a bit of practice, it can make a massive difference. Let's have a look at a close-up of when I'm playing a shot. So when I play the shot, that's the divot that I took here. Now my ball was sitting about here. So the first thing we notice is that the deepest part of the divot is actually in front of the ball. Now that means that the ball must have been struck with a slight descending blow. Now the key things when I'm taking the sand here is three things. One, what depth of sand do I take? And that can change according to how thick the sand is. The second thing is what length of divot do I take? And the third is where do I contact the sand in relation to the ball? I'm always catching the ball with a very slight descending blow, even though I want the ball to get up in the air. So I'm going to make some changes to my setup. First of all, with a normal shot, when the club swings down and through impact, the club face is going to turn over. It'll square up and then keep rolling. With a bunker shot, I want the club face to stay more open. Now, I can change that by making some modifications to my grip and a little bit of a modification to my stroke. But if we have a look at the grip first, the key things are, when I hold the club with my left hand, I'm going to turn my left hand so it's turn more clockwise on the grip, which is usually called making the left hand grip stronger. I'm going to move my right hand so it's more in the fingers, and my right hand is turned anti-clockwise on the grip, so that's called making your grip a little bit weaker with the right hand. So effectively what I'm doing is I'm turning both hands more this way on the grip. Now what that'll do is that'll encourage more wrist action, not that I need to manipulate it, but just the swinging weight of the club is going to encourage more wrist action. The second thing it's going to do is when the club swings through, the club face is more likely to stay open as it swings through rather than closing over. When I set myself up, I want the club head itself to skim through the sand rather than digging into the sand. Now the easiest way for me to help to achieve that is that when I set myself up, rather than aiming the club face at the target, I'm actually going to open it a little bit. Now there's a couple of benefits in doing that. One is that by aiming the club face a little to the right of the target, it gives me more loft, and most of the time with a bunker shot we want to get the ball elevated anyway. The second thing is that it allows the sole of the club to work a little bit more with a bouncing action through the sand. Now if I hold the club straight up here and look at the bottom of the club, the bottom of the club actually angles back this way. Now whatever angle that is to the horizontal, that's the amount of bounce that I have on my club. So you may have heard the term bounce used to describe the sole of a club and how there are different amounts of bounce. Whatever that angle is the amount of bounce. Now if I have a look at my club here, it says that it has 14 degrees of bounce. So if I aim my club face to the right, it actually increases that. Now, I don't know, I'm guessing it's probably over 20. So that's going to help to avoid the club cutting into the sand. The third thing is that I want the club to swing through with a reasonably shallow blow. Now there's a few changes that I'm going to make to my setup to do that. The first is that when the club swings back and through, I'm going to have the handle of the club a little bit lower than normal. Now because the club's lower than normal, when the club swings back and through, it's not going to swing on a steep path, it's going to swing on a shallower path, which is what I want for these shots. Because the club handle is a little lower, I need to get my body down. Now the easiest way to get my body lower so that I can be stable and maintain that posture during the stroke is to stand with my feet a little bit further apart. So because my feet are further apart, my hips will be lower, and then it's a lot easier for me to keep the club and the handle of the club a lot lower. So when I swing back and through, the club is going to swing through with a fairly shallow blow, and that's what I want for this shot. I'm going to position the ball forward in my stance, never back. The reason that I don't put it back is because when it goes back, it tends to encourage a steeper blow, and that's more likely to create a digging type action with the club, which again is going to make it difficult for me to get the ball out. So when I set myself up, ball position's forward, my hands are turned more on top of the club, and my hips are down. So the club, when it's swinging back and through, is going to swing back and through in a fairly shallow line there. Now, my choice of club for these shots is my 56-degree sand iron. Most players will use a 60. The 60-degree club, you have to hit the ball harder for it to go the same distance. But the other thing is, because of the shape of the sole of the club and the amount of bounce, which I talked about a little while ago, that can make it more difficult with a 60-degree club than what it will be with a 56-degree club. But experiment with that yourself if you have both of them, and find out which one seems to work best for you. The other thing that I want for stability is my balance is even on both feet here, but if I just set my balance a little bit to the left, then when I swing back and through, again, it's going to be a lot easier for me to keep my body stable. Now, I'm only setting my balance a little bit to my left. I'm not setting it a long way to the left. So they're the key elements to set up, and you'll find that that's going to make it a lot easier for when we get into playing the shot.